Yeah, on the rack.
Yeah.
That's good. That's that's a really good one. Uh,
we were all we were all standing around that morning, man, waiting for the wake up. Hey, what's going on?
Nothing much. Just another day.
What's the word?
I'm annoyed.
Why?
I didn't get that apartment.
Yeah. The saying, well, there's several sayings, but the one they always say is you snooze, you lose. So,
Well, I wasn't even snoozing. I did everything.
yeah. But it's not like
Yeah.
There's the other cliche. There's plenty of fish in the sea. So there'll always be another place that'll maybe something better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What movie was
Just
that? I think of where they go. Oh, from Pirates of the Caribbean.
What about the ship?
Yeah. What was Johnny Depp's character?
Jack Sparrow.
Jack Sparrow. And who was the other guy that came along with him?
Yeah. It's been so long. Yeah.
Yeah, but the girl, remember the girl pirate?
Mm-hmm.
And she slapped Jack. And he said, and the other guy said to him, I suppose you didn't deserve that. And he goes, yeah. He goes, I deserve that one.
Yeah.
And then they went on about the boat because Jack stole her boat or her ship or whatever. Mm-hmm. And Jack, of course, is trying to improvise, and he goes, I'll get you another ship. And then the other guy goes, a better ship. And then they go, go, that one. She goes, that one. And he goes, yeah, that one.
Yeah, exactly.
So the point is that you never know. You might find yourself a better apartment at a better deal. So be optimistic, man.
Oh yeah. It's how it is when sometimes you think, all right, I've got it settled, I've decided all of that, and then it just falls apart. Now you think, now I have to move on to the next one. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what's the song that always pops up in your head when that happens?
What, U2?
No. Well, you could use that one, but no, not that one. What's the final song in the movie Spectacular?
Oh yeah. Everything can change when you least expect it.
Yeah. What? Bring up the lyrics to that real quick.
Yeah, there's no easy way to figure out why everything we planned gets turned around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, got it down to a T. So why did things never end the way you think they're going to be?
Yeah, it's the truth, man. But that's like I've told you many times before, that's the adventure of life, man.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Very true. Just like with this whole thing about me moving here, it was the 5th, 6th option. So,
yeah. Yeah, but the thing about you compared to a lot of other people is at least you're going someplace.
Yeah.
Whether you're talking about the Polar Express, Faster Pussycat, Nonstop to Nowhere, whatever, about the train, about getting on the train and just going, man. That's an interesting contrast between Faster Pussycat and the song Nonstop to Nowhere compared to what the conductor tells the kid in the Polar Express. Because he tells the kid in the Polar Express, it doesn't matter where the train's going.
As long as you get on.
Yeah, so when you listen to the song Nonstop to Nowhere, that's one of my favorite songs by Faster Pussycat. It's an interesting thing because it almost seems like, well, I don't know where I'm going, but the thing about it is, at least you're going somewhere.
Very true.
And there's a
Very
lot
true.
of people going nowhere, man.
Mm-hmm.
And who wrote
Yeah.
that?
And a lot of people who are perfectly content to.
Yeah, who wrote the song "Nowhere Fast"? Tess Mathias's.
Rap?
No,
Nowhere. I can hear the song in my head.
Nowhere Fast.
Who did that song?
There's actually they did. Well, I think three.
Oh, that was Oh no, I was thinking of. I don't think it's what you're thinking of. That was the name of the song in Streets of Fire. That's what I was thinking of.
No,
Yeah, I can't think of another.
it was off their debate album. That
Rock band?
There one of the songs off the album was I don't care about nothing at all. I don't care about nothing.
I don't know. You have me stumped. I don't know.
Shaka Messiah.
Okay, yeah, I wouldn't have done that. Yeah,
double check on the first album. On
Fair
the first album, it should be that should be the name of the song. Nowhere Fast. Just double check my facts. It's been a while since I listened to the first album by Shaka Messiah.
I've never listened to the first album.
Really? That is a kick butt rockin' album. You gotta listen. All right, that's your next album you've been assigned to listen to is the first album.
Okay. Yeah, is the name of the song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What just out of curiosity.
The album Welcome.
What was it again? The album?
Welcome to Bop City.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what were the lyrics on Nowhere Fast?
Yeah, it's definitely it's about people that don't really care about anything.
Yeah. But that's supposed to be rock. Go ahead.
Yeah, a lot of rock. Yeah, the second verse is "Hail to the wasted, all those wasted years, cruise on down Decadencia Drive, smash all the limits, damned if I slow down. Don't tell me my life's a disgrace. Much rather sorry than safe."
Yeah, that's their perspective. Some people say, "Well, that's rock and roll," but yeah, there's a lot of people that are on that track right there. Not to saying that. I guess it's when you're young and you're a rebel. That's what it's just like the Stray Cats. You listen to a lot of their early music. I mean, that's supposed to be rock and roll, rebellion. What is it? Kiss and Flaming Youth, right? What do they say about their parents? And it's so funny because look that up real quick. I forgot exactly what it says.
The only thing I remember is that my parents think I'm crazy.
Yeah,
that's like the first line in the song or something. The first verse. My parents think I'm crazy and they hate the things I do. I'm stupid and I'm lazy, man. If they always.
Yeah. See, you know what I mean? It's a knock against parents, against authority. But it's so interesting when these people become parents themselves. Like you look at Paul Stanley. I wonder what some of these guys tell their kids.
But so they want to be respected.
Yeah. But it's one of those things like with Kiss and even going to with bands like Shaka Messiah. You like to think that people who tell you can't do things, this goes along with what the theme of Flaming Youth is all about. Was that piece of, you want to be a rock star, your parents are going to tell you you're going to be a doctor. And it's just like they want to keep you in these boundaries and you just want to do what you want to do in life. And I think a lot of rock and roll when you're young is a reflection of that. Is like you want to do your own thing. Like the song in going back to the first album with Shaka Messiah was "I Don't Care About Nothing." And of course, me as a parent now, no, I do care a lot about stuff. But back then, when you're particularly if you're single, and you had like a crummy childhood, stuff like that, it's difficult to care about anything
Yeah.
until you have something to truly care about. That,
Very true. Yeah, it's
yeah.
How do I say this? It's like you said, if you're just a guy, if you're just in life, it's like as long as I have myself covered, everything else just kind of is over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people fall in that trap or mindset, whatever you want to call it.
But that's kind of the spirit of rock and roll in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it can change. That's the thing about rock and roll music is you can start off with singing a certain way, and then you can change that tune. Like we talked about Metallica many times before, how you receive that message. Sometimes it's about. I remember when I would listen to music. Sometimes you blast out loud so people can hear what you're saying. If you're angry, if you're sad, depressed, or something like that, I think that's one of the reasons why you turn the music up loud, is so other people can hear. Like, I'm mad, I'm upset. Listen to me, man. I think that's why. Here, Tess Mathias's trivia again. What Kiss song do they say turn it up to 10? I'm
trying
to remember myself. It was one of their early songs.
Yeah, it's not in the song, but it sounded very similar to what they say and Shout It Out Loud, but it's not that song.
No.
Turn it up to 10. Deuce?
No, I take it back. It's off one of their non-makeup albums.
Oh my God. I have no clue.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah, it just hit me.
Okay.
It's one
crazy nights.
You might be right. I think you're right.
That's my best bet.
Yeah, look it up. I think you're right. It is Crazy Nights.
I want to say.
Because hold on before you look up, because it goes, if life is the lyric is, if life is a stereo or something, turn it up to 10. That's what the lyric is.
Yeah, it's something like that. Yeah. Hey, the sun goes down like a bad dream. You wound up tight, gotta let off steam. They say they can break you again and again. If life is a radio, turn up to 10.
Yeah.
Got it.
Well, that tested my trivia.
Yeah. It took a second because I was like, it doesn't sound like anything. You said in the early album, I was thinking, I was like, I know it's not Deuce. And then you said non-makeup. I said, yeah, that song. It clicked in my head. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was 2 great Kiss songs off that album. One was Crazy Nights, and was it the other one was just Turn on the Night? Yeah.
yeah, that was a great song. Yeah. And the album was called Crazy Nights.
Yeah. Yeah. How many songs can you name with the loud rock songs with the loud in it? I was thinking like 4 or 5.
In the name of the song?
Yeah.
I Love It Loud. Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh, my mind went blank.
I'll give you 2 bands, Brittany Fox, if you can name the songs. Tiger Tales.
Tiger Tales?
Yeah.
The only 2 songs I remember from Tiger Tales is Twist and Shake and Love Bomb.
Yeah.
I don't remember any others. Brittany Fox.
Yeah, and Brittany Fox.
In the name.
Yeah.
I don't know that one.
It's off. I believe their final album was Bite Down Hard, unless they're still together. I don't even know if they're still together, but they might be. No. But it's off the album. Should be Bite Down Hard.
The only song I remember off that album is Look My Way. Wasn't that?
Yeah, that was a good song. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just called Louder.
Yeah, Louder. That's a good song.
Yeah.
Oh, and then you got Tiger Tales.
Oh yeah.
That should have been on the album Berserk.
That was like their only album.
No,
pretty
no, no,
much.
no. They've had other albums. In fact, I think
Yeah.
they're still together. Tiger
They are
Tooth.
still together.
Yeah.
They released. I saw they released like part 2 or whatever, like a few years ago.
Yeah.
To Berserk.
Yeah, they're another
Something.
band that needs to retire. They're looking raggedy.
Yeah. No.
Really? It wasn't off
No.
Berserk because they should have said the.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm thinking of. I thought Loud was in it. Oh, Turn It Down. I'm sorry. That's what it says. It says Turn It Down, not it is Turn It Down, Down. I forgot what the name of the song is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't have Loud in it.
Yeah.
Gosh darn it. I know there's other songs.
Yeah, I know there are too. I just can't think of them.
But that's rock and roll, man. I mean, is you don't want it the Who loud though.
No, you don't want to go deaf.
Yeah. What was at one point they held the Guinness Book World Record for the loudest concert. How loud was it?
It was 126 decibels.
Yeah, which is equivalent to what? They said if we're standing by towards the speakers, they said it was either equal to or louder than a jet engine at full throttle.
Yeah. They measured and they got that 126 decibels at a distance of 32 meters or 105 feet.
Yeah.
So if there was anything closer, then it's going to be more intense. And that was at a stadium. It wasn't like this big open field. That was at a football stadium.
Yeah.
So but as we know, I remember we looked it up that one time. Kiss eventually broke the record, or they had the unofficial record of the loudest concert ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in Ottawa, in Canada, which was 136 decibels.
Yeah. And Kiss, what was for a while? I don't remember what tour it was, but that was the model for the tour. If it's too loud.
Oh yeah, you're too old.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like it says here that a volume of 115 decibels risks permanent damage after only 30 seconds. So whether you're talking about the Who or Kiss or whatever other group was in the timeline, it's impressive how people walked out of there with their hearing even somewhat intact.
Yeah, here's an interesting trivia. Talking about a person that we don't really like anymore, and that's terrible Ted Nugent. But it's interesting because Ted Nugent, and double check my facts on this, but he's deaf in one ear. But he hears fine in the other. And the reason why is because he said he always wore an earplug in one of his ears. Yeah, double check that.
He is deaf in one ear. Yeah. It's just credited to. And he says his hearing loss due to playing. I don't know how this. Maybe it's a speaker setup or something. Just was always intense on his left side. But it was 3 things. It was kneeling in front of speakers to get feedback, playing music loudly in general, and also shooting guns without ear protection.
Oh,
so
yeah. That's kind of an interesting thing. Comparatively, like another interesting case as far as hearing is Pete Townshend and the famous incident on the Smothers Brothers. And there's so much it's we're talking about, and I want to talk about today in rock history. But going to that incident, a couple of things about it was first of all, Keith Moon didn't tell anybody he had put, I guess, basically, I think it was equivalent to a half stick of dynamite in his
is something crazy.
Yeah, in his bass drum. And he didn't tell anybody about it to start with. And of course, when Pete Townshend, when he was breaking his guitar, the drum went off right, he was right beside it. And I never forget that because his hair was literally just looked like he put his finger in a light socket.
Yeah, just up.
But the other thing about that is because of that incident, that's where he lost, or it was partial loss of hearing or whatever. He had permanent ringing in his ear.
Yeah, I mean, think about how loud. I mean, even some fireworks can be off in the distance.
Yeah,
and all of that. I mean, and then you take however much explosive material it was. If you're even talking a quarter stick of dynamite, talking an eighth of a stick of dynamite, that's going to be a loud bang.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, it was a loud bang. That incident. Mm-hmm. Yeah, looking it up.
Yeah, it pretty much this one site, it kind of just goes through very quickly. It says at the end, I guess it's all in how you perceive how we lost his hearing over time. It's as though the explosion has been rumored to have caused Townshend's eventual near deafness. Credit for that should probably go instead to the Who's pioneering use of stacked Marshall amplifiers as a means of achieving maximum volume during the live performances. But the guy got his blasted in on one side of his head with an explosive.
Yeah.
Stashed away in a drum kit. Yeah. Was it gunpowder? It was I guess it was gunpowder. Yeah, it was 10 times. This headline just says 10 times the permitted amount of gunpowder. Permitted amount in relation to what? Okay. Film director Jeff Stein, who uses the set's climaxes to opening for the Who's The Kids Are All Right, tells a slightly different story, saying that, to quote him, it was 10 times the legal amount of gunpowder you're allowed to use on a soundstage. Keith bribed the stagehand, and I think he got him loaded on some dukes. The stagehand too. So, however, he got all that gunpowder into it, the stagehand did.
Yeah, you're locked up. Now you're back.
Oh,
yeah. I didn't hear it.
It's going to be one of those.
Yeah. What were you saying?
Oh, just about the fact that. Because on stages, obviously, some shows, productions, they have some explosion, so they had it nearby, but then he just loaded it up. He said, this is going to be a good prank.
Yeah, well, it would have been interesting what happened backstage after that with even Roger, and I believe it's John is his first name, bass player. And particularly Pete, what they said behind stage to him.
Yeah, this article, it goes on a bit. I'm just trying to flip through it, kind of quote some different people. The explosion happened. Yeah, Moon was injured. I didn't know that about the explosion, that the blast, some of the cymbal that Keith Moon had on his drum, it actually sliced his arm, and everything actually created a little bit of shrapnel, so it sliced his arm. No. So you just got metal fragments just flying around. Well, Roger Daltrey, who knows what's coming, did he? Has already retreated to a slightly less dangerous position on the stage. John Entwistle, meanwhile, seems completely involved with barely reacting as chaos erupts around him. Tommy Smothers walks onto set with his acoustic guitar, ostensibly to restore some order, but then violence continues as Townshend snatches it from him and dashes it to the floor. I'd be curious to know, like you said, the conversation that happened afterward, because I guess it knocked out the broadcast or something. Or did it? Or was that they were just saying that the show, what was this article saying? We're doing some real-time reading. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was the kind of stuff that Keith Moon was notorious for. But ultimately, his pranks played a heavy cost when he actually killed somebody.
Yeah.
I think that incident, I forgot how exactly the story went. I think they were at some hotel party and he got into a car, then he backed over somebody. And, but I think, obviously, even all the way till he passed away, he was just unhinged. But I think that did affect him a lot. And he probably ultimately he just kept doing the drugs or whatever until he passed away.
Yeah. I didn't know that he particularly enjoyed throwing cherry bombs down toilets.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
he was. I don't know
yeah,
how
just
it. Go ahead.
that's just a chaotic guy.
Yeah, I don't know how to feel about Keith Moon. He's one of my favorite drummers of all time, no doubt. I mean, if you ask me who do I think the three best drummers were, I would probably pick the three from the 60s, Ginger Baker, Mitch Mitchell, and Keith Moon. Those would probably be my three favorite drummers. But Keith Moon,
Yeah,
if I was in a band with that guy,
I don't know if I would have made it.
yeah, I don't know how the other members, but one thing that's interesting is when it comes to Roger Daltrey and John, I always try to get his name right. Eastwhistle, if that's exactly how you pronounce his name.
Whistle.
But he never really messed with those two. It was really Pete that he would really mess with. So I think there was that kind of acknowledgement in the band that don't mess with Roger, don't mess with John, but Pete, he just tolerated it. But he was a great drummer. That's the thing. I mean, the guy was a great drummer, but in the end, as a person, yeah.
Yeah. And that's the other thing is being around somebody like that. And when he's doing stuff like that on stage, blowing stuff up, I would always be on edge that he's got something tucked away somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm talking about a pyromaniac.
Yeah, that's why
it lasted long in that relationship.
Yeah, that's why I don't like pranksters, man.
Yeah.
They always
I mean, it's one.
Good.
It's one thing if like, somebody's laying behind a wall and they're like putting apples on a counter and they're like magically appearing. But when you're blowing stuff up, no.
Yeah. Who did I always talk about when I was in boot camp?
Was it the Mad Recruit?
Yeah. What was his name? Yeah, Enoch.
Yeah.
What do you remember some of his incidences?
Wasn't there one where he tied somebody up with dental floss?
Yeah.
Yeah, on the rack.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a really good one.
We were all standing around that morning, man, waiting for the wake up. Even when the company commander walked in, he even started laughing.
It's nothing you can do. Everybody's human.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one I always remember.
He put shaving cream in somebody's hat.
I knew there's something with shaving cream. I didn't remember the hat. Yeah.
There was other stuff, and he would always leave a note. The Mad Recruit.
Yeah.
So it's like I said, it's all great when it's happening to somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but if you wake up and you're tied with dental floss ear rack, is that going to be so funny? I guess it just depends on somebody's humor.
Yeah. I mean, boot camp, it's stressful enough. You got to get up at a certain time, get dressed. You only have, and then something like that, you're gonna get upset or whatever. But yeah, the thing about pranksters, there's always going to be a point, like Keith Moon, where it's just going to go too far. And it did for him when he actually did kill somebody. So, and the sad thing about it is, and this goes along with what Vince Neil of Motley Crue said when he caused somebody's death, the lead singer for Hanoi Rocks. Not the lead singer. I'm sorry. I think it was the guitarist or whoever it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But Vince Neil said he should have gone to jail for that. He even said that. He goes, but that's the power of cash. That's the power of money.
Yeah.
Because Keith Moon, he didn't serve any prison time for killing somebody, and neither did Vince. I think he was in jail for a few days or something like that, but then he was released.
Yeah, then he had to do charity work, community work.
Yeah. But for people that play pranks, there's you got to know that there's a limit, and you got to understand people. Some people don't like it, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that going to that point, I think that was very much the case. Keith Moon at least understood that with Roger and John, because I don't remember any incident specifically where he did anything necessarily with them. He may have had, but certainly not on the public level that I ever saw. It was really just with Pete.
Yeah, and it's let me go back to it. There was a little quote on Moon's Wikipedia page. Yeah, where with Entwistle, they were talking about the blowing up toilet, and he said in an interview in 1981, he said, "Well, a lot of times when Keith was blowing up toilets, I was standing behind him with the matches."
Yeah.
So, it's they kind of had that. Maybe Entwistle wasn't doing the literal act, but he was a bit of a. He allowed the behavior. He was an enabler. That's the word.
Yeah, that's easy to believe, because in the film, The Kid's All Right, he uses it. Remember, he takes his albums from his place, he takes them outside, and he shoots them with his shotgun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I can definitely believe that.
Yeah. So that's, I think, like your earlier point saying that, oh yeah, he didn't really mess with the other two, but that's why, because they were kind of in it together.
Yeah.
In a sort of way.
Yeah. But that's always that was part of rock and roll back then, is sensationalism, because whether from Alice Cooper and the things he did on stage to obviously Kiss with the fire breathing and the smashing of guitars, which they picked out from The Who, because that's what they did. And Jimi Hendrix and the Experience, Jimi Hendrix would light his guitar on fire, but Kiss took it to the highest level during the 70s with their show. But now we're talking about Ghost, which is their theatrics. It's a lot more. But they don't do, even Ghost, they don't do the explosions like Kiss.
No, not in the, I don't even know how to say it, but they are.
Yeah. The Kiss, that was the thing back then. And when I saw them in 96, that was cool. And the explosions happened. That's like, holy cow, yeah. But that's rock and roll, man. I mean, when we're going back to what we're talking about loud, it's one of those, if you're a true rock and roller, you listen to it loud, man.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do that anymore, stuff like that. But but back then, I think there really was. That was what part of what was behind it is being angry and being depressed, whatever. And you want your parents, you want your siblings, whatever, to hear what's inside of you. So maybe somebody can care enough or whatever to make things better in your life, stuff like that. But I think me as a parent, if you were like. I remember there was a movie that I saw when I was young. It was a sad movie. It had Robbie Benson in it. And the story ultimately ended with him killing one of his parents. And I think it was about drugs or however it was. Yeah, let's see if you can look that up real quick. It's a Robbie Benson. It was a movie in the 70s. I'm trying to remember the exact storyline from it. Because it had a really important message as what it means to be a parent. This kind of goes like with Rebel Without a Cause, when you have a young kid who's crying out, needs guidance, needs help, and parents don't respond to it. And it ultimately leads to, for a lot of people, it leads to something tragic. Yeah. And if I remember this movie right, it's very much reflecting of that.
Describe the plot again.
The plot. It's he's like locked up in his room. I'm pretty sure he does like drugs and his parents. Yeah, it's been so long since I've seen the movie. The only thing I remember is and then his like dad would go down there, tell him to turn his music down or whatever it was, but I think it had to do with.
I got it.
Okay,
I think I got it. Yeah, the death of Richie.
Yeah,
it kind of just the plot. Because it goes on, it says they have their opening scene, the cemetery, all of that. It says the story then cuts from the cemetery to a car swerving erratically on the street. Inside is 17-year-old Richie Werner, played by Robbie Benson, who's doing drugs in the car with his 3 friends. The driver's pulled over for erratic driving. And then that begins a series of episodes that bring Richie into conflict with his father. Mr. Man who loves his son but has trouble expressing his feelings. Yeah.
That movie is. I think it really reflects that with a lot of young people. Like I was just saying about Rebel Without a Cause, the way he was confronting his father. Remember, and in fact, in Rebel Without a Cause, if you remember, he actually attacks his dad in that movie.
Yeah.
Because he wants guidance. They're crying out for help. And it's interesting about Generation X, right? Because what's the cliche for Generation X?
I don't know.
Yeah, that we raised ourselves, I think like on hose water or something like that. Yeah. What exactly was it?
That's a new one I've never heard before. Where different sayings. We were the last generation of feral children. Pretty much saying, hey, since there are no parents around, we kind of do what we wanted.
Yeah. But that's basically what it is.
Yeah, that was the saying I've always heard with Generation X is we were the latchkey generation.
Say that again. You broke up.
That the saying we were the latchkey generation.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was very much like Charlie Brown, right? I mean, their parents were kind of around. And it was very much like that. Like I always talk about when we were kids, our parents would drop us off everywhere, whether it was going roller skating, whether we went to church, or whatever it was. But we were just a pack of kids that kind of just looked out for each other and went everywhere. And our parents really weren't around, man.
Yeah.
It's so much the truth. Yeah. But holy cow, when I was in high school, what a difference that would have made in my life if I really had the guidance. Then it made a tremendous difference in my life. And that's the one thing I learned with you and with Hope and so on, was try to be there as a parent. And that the most important thing as a parent is to give guidance. And I guess I kind of picked that up from Rebel Without a Cause, because in Rebel Without a Cause, that's what he was looking for. He needed guidance. He needed to know exactly what to do given the situations he was being confronted with. And his dad was just weak. Didn't know how to give him a good answer or anything like that. If you ever do get a chance to see that film, Death of Richie, it's a heartbreaking film for sure, man. But it sends a powerful message, man. What a parent shouldn't do, or what they should do.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, the most important thing is, somebody asked me, what's the most important thing you could do as a parent? And that's to give guidance, man, because I didn't grow up in a loving home. So for me, even to this day, I struggle with expressing love, taking love. So it's difficult for me. And I imagine it would be for any parent that didn't come from a loving environment.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is as long as you can give guidance and as much love as you can or you're capable of, so that they, and like I always said before, so they can have a better life than what you had. I think that's what you want as a parent. So look at your kid and say, well, at least they had a better life than what I did. Not to say my life could have been a whole lot worse. Yeah, I mean, I could have been born in 1950 and went to Vietnam, lost both my legs or whatever in a war that I wouldn't have wanted to have been part of. But fate had it where that didn't happen to me, or other dark circumstances. So, yeah, life could have been a lot worse, but it could have been a lot better as well. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think, like I said, it's great that you're on that train, that you're going somewhere. I kind of basically did that myself. When I got into the military, I got away from there. So at least I did that, smart enough to do that, even though I did go back for a couple of years. But then I definitely learned from that and never went back. So,
Yeah.
but going back to rock and roll,
Yeah.
that's what rock and roll is all about, man. It's reflecting on all that. I mean, if you're the people my generation, from Generation X, I mean, people say, well, they're listening to I don't know how many people still listen to it really loud. I mean, there's still people going to these Rockers with Walkers concerts, but there's a reason why, man. There's a reason why.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's one thing that rock pioneered. Yeah, in those the formative years and everything is kind of music where you have to listen to it when you listen to it, you have to commit to it. Like you're talking about, it's not music that you play softly. You have to play it louder. You have to. There's a certain higher level of energy that you have to have when you're listening to it, because it's, I don't know, especially with hard rock, as the Who is hard rock, but especially as you move more into like the 70s and definitely into the 80s, where it's much more intense, a lot faster, a lot of it. It's not sit down and listen music, kind of like jazz or something like that, where it's high energy. And yeah, it represented something that you have to put yourself into. You have to, that's the best word I can think is commit when you're listening to it.
Yeah, it's Bubba O'Reilly, man. It's what it is. It's marching music, man. It's an anthem. It's about letting people hear you. That, like you said, your parents that ain't there, that you want them to hear what you're trying to say, that you want to do the things that you want to do in life, not what they're telling you to do. That's what rock and roll is all about, man. That's why it's more, for real rock and rollers, it's more than music, man. It's reflection of your emotions, what you want to be, and so forth, man. Particularly with the bands in the 70s. Because that was the height going into the early 80s. That was the height of Generation X. So all these bands, from Kiss, Led Zeppelin, The Who, these are the bands of Generation X, man.
Very much.
Yeah, and that's why it's loud. That's why the messaging is the way it is. And it back then, compared to now, like I said, you have death metal bands and what all this other junk was. But yeah, the messaging and the music stood for, I think, something different and more powerful back then compared to what modern rock bands are doing. Even Ghost isn't reflection of my generation. It's a reflection of this time, and rightly so. Even though they try to pick up on some of the themes, but if you're not from that generation, music wise, some of the band stuff like that, it's you just can't write about if you didn't really live in that time, man. Because you can only people who did could really identify what it was like.
Yeah.
And this generation, from I guess what Generation Y to millennials and whatever else that follows, they grew up in a different world. I'm not saying that they had it any better, and I think in some ways they had it worse because then we get into technology age, and then they're glued to their phones, and there's no real social action between the families. So I think there's their own problems with those generations. And so we certainly, from Generation X, they certainly didn't do a lot to improve the situation from the environment that they grew up in. Yeah. And I think a lot of the problems in the world today is because of my generation. For that very reason, because some of them still have that attitude from Shaka Masai, like they don't care about nothing.
It's interesting because I'm the middle generation in some ways, because there's Gen Alpha, which is the newest, youngest generation, and I'm Gen Z, and then before me, between you and me, is Gen Y. So I'm one of the two middle generations, but I'm the middle generation from the parents to the kids, the young kids. And yeah, you see it both ways in my spot, because you see the younger kids, where the little kids, where there is that lack of interaction, but in a different way, because it's like I remember seeing the post somewhere a while ago about the play areas at McDonald's or Burger King, one of the fast food places. And instead of like when I was a kid, you have the big playground thing, you have the slides, or you could climb up whatever. Now it's just it's a touch screen on a wall for them to sit down in front of and just play with, and all of that. And all of those different things. And the parents too. I was at one of the sporting games here, and there's his father with his two kids. And instead of him encouraging them to watch the game, it was a title race and all of that really important game, he just gave the kids their two phones. And they were just on TikTok or whatever watching, instead of interacting with his children as they're sitting right next to him, when they could be having a shared experience of watching the game. If he asked his kids how the game was, they wouldn't have had any idea. They weren't watching it. But then, yeah, with kind of the two generations older than me right now, I describe it as, because there was nobody to raise, like you were talking about, there was nobody to raise a lot of people your age. You had to take care of yourself because nobody else was going to. Which on one hand is a good quality, to be self-sufficient. But then there's that second side where people twist that, not everybody, but a lot of people twist that into saying, well, I'm the only person that does matter because nobody else cares about me.
Mm-hmm.
And so even that, strangely, it does reflect onto how they raise kids, their own kids. But yeah, it's like I've had that conversation with you as I've grown up a bit. And I've realized that, yeah, growing up, I mean, in like music and movies and media, or just kind of personalities out in the world, just not within my own family, I didn't really have role models or anything, because everybody was kind of just going about their own business, not really worried about putting out a good image into the world, but just kind of having the best time that they could give themselves. Yeah, it's a weird, it was a strange place to be in, to look at both ends of it. But that was at some point connecting it to rock music. There was something, I always go on about 2012 and the change of the world. that year. There was something that happened in kind of the end of the 2010s into the 2020s where I don't know, there's those little bits, the little bits of music um, that started to kind of speak to kind something that people could connect back to, like we talked about with Ghosts, where they find those people at the concerts that say, "Yeah, I was a massive Kiss fan, and now I'm here." We've developed that bridge a little bit, very small amounts across time, but still, like you said, yeah, it's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to really connect with something from a previous time if you didn't live in.
Yeah, or for me trying to connect with people from this time, because sometimes it is difficult. I mean, you think you understand, but you know, my favorite line when it comes to that is always from West Side Story with the one guy when he says, "When I was your age," and what did he say?
When you was my age, when my dad was my age, nobody was my age. You don't get it.
Yeah, and
he said it exactly.
Yeah, he said, as soon as you get that, then you can start digging us.
Mm-hmm.
We got our own problems. We got our own situations that are different than yours. Yeah, you need to be able to see things from a different lens as you get older with the younger generation. Unfortunately, particularly on the political front, we got all these old dinosaurs that don't see through that lens. They don't see the world how it is today and how things need to change to get better. Everything, that should just be common sense, that everything has to evolve and get better. There's always room for improvement. And if you try to step backwards, you're not improving anything. You got to change with the times, man, and that's what's important. Even rock and roll, going back to rock and roll has changed with the times. When we were talking about the 90s, when it went into grunge, it's still around today. Unfortunately, a lot of it's just junk, in my opinion, with death metal and whatever junk that they put out. But fortunately, there are still some good rock bands that still have emerged, with Greta Van Fleet, with Ghost, and the Black Veil Brides, and some of the other bands. But yeah, I mean, you gotta remember the current bands. Gotta remember one thing about rock and roll, going back to Generation X, is the fact that rock and roll is not really a form of entertainment with younger people. It's sending a message. That's the thing, and I think too much that they've taken rock and roll, and it's more about. It's not about messaging per se. I mean, it's more about just what would be a way to describe it. It really is like in some respects, just like total sensationalism with no real meaning behind it, man. Mm-hmm. I guess I would say it that way, because with Ghost, I don't really see any real messaging compared to, like, if you're talking about what, Aerosmith, or what would be a really, like, Kiss. Kiss would probably be, the best, because they had a real strong message behind their music. Is there a band today that's going to do like a Bubba O'Reilly, a real marching song?
I get what you're saying. There isn't that kind of direct kind of. There isn't rock music that makes a personal connection. Kind of like a very direct example is like a Bruce Springsteen,
right?
Where he talks directly about human moments and situations and all of that. With Ghost, because I listened to a few interviews, Tobias Forge, like with not this newest album, but the last one, the whole idea was to talk about imperialism and the rise and fall of empires and all of that. and some of it was very much connected to recent events. And even like we were reading about when they did We Don't Need Another Hero and all of that, it is connected to something, but it's not necessarily the common man way to say it.
I'll take
because
that.
even this new album,
Yeah, go ahead.
The new album is supposed to be more about emotions, but I understand what you're saying at the same time.
Yeah, when you're saying that, I kind of take that back because you're right. Ghost did We Don't Need Another Hero. They did do some messaging type music, so I'll take that back. That there still is that element with rock and roll. Now, second thinking about that, it was just more prominent, I guess, with bands like The Who, like Kiss back then in the 70s. But yeah, music has always been that representation of helping to express yourself when you don't know necessarily how to.
Exactly who you sound like right now. You sound very punk right now.
Yeah, punk. Yeah.
That was the whole MO back in the day. They said, "Oh, rock has gone to flamboyant, commercial. They're just sensationalists. We want to talk about the real situations. We want to strip it all back down to the music."
Yeah.
And just talk about things, send a message out.
Yeah. So I guess I'd be part of that post-punk
That's
generation.
what I was thinking the whole time as you were describing it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I did. I got into the Clash, never got into the Sex Pistols. I particularly Sid Vicious, didn't care for that guy at all. But was a big Clash fan, and punk. I definitely can relate to punk. The concept, not to the extremity that punk went, but the basic idea behind punk. Yeah, I definitely could see.
Yeah,
particularly today. Does that mean I want to turn to a punk run? No, but
no, yeah. But I do agree with you. And then there's the whole part about it, and that's a whole second conversation almost, because we know that as time has gone on, music has gotten more commercial, and there's most musicians now are more just concerned about keeping a clean or a likable image, so that way they can commercialize it instead of having some higher cause. And everything.
Yeah, and what you just said there is so true when it comes to Kiss, because that there is so clearly evident how commercial the band became after they took the makeup off, and that's why if people ask me, the only time Kiss was only in the first decade. After that, it really wasn't Kiss anymore. Man, what Kiss sung about, what they stood for back in the 70s, those guys changed. I mean, you listen to Paul Stanley now, he doesn't sound nothing like a rock and roller, man. He's a family man, and I get that. But see, that's why I'm talking about Kiss and bands that go on too long, man, and how you could tarnish the legacy of a band like Kiss did. Mm-hmm. Because if I ran into Paul Stanley, I would tell him, what you're doing now with Kiss is not what Kiss was all about back in the 70s. When you start with the song Flaming Youth, which I always considered that an anthem and a marching song. They may argue otherwise, but it's what's the word I'm trying to think of? The sentiment. It's not the same, man. I remember when Kiss released the song Forever, how critics, traditional Kiss fans hated that song because they go, what? A love song about commitment? This ain't Kiss. Because Kiss, what songs would they sing before? Love 'em, leave 'em, right?
Yeah.
That's what Kiss would sing about before. Now they're singing about forever, right? So, but that isn't necessarily true because, like I said, on Love Gun, they wrote "Then She Kissed Me," which is about marriage. So it's not like all their songs were about.
It's a mix.
Yeah, but as Kiss went on, their music became more and more. And it's so funny because when they did the Dynasty tour, a lot of them didn't like it because, we're becoming too commercial, man. But you guys did that later on in your career. And you guys knocked that generation, but you did it even worse as you went on in your career. So, yeah. So now I really get it. Yeah. I mean, when Twisted Sister did We're Not Gonna Take It, that song was so reflective of the times, and it wasn't a gimmick. That's what I'm trying to say. It wasn't a gimmick for people who listen to the music. To them, it was something to march behind. This is what we're about. This is what made you feel strong, your purpose in life, and so on. It gave you a reason to live. That's what it was.
Yeah. Yeah, and even since I've grown up in the post-rock peak time, and for the most part, especially now in this current moment where most of the bands are not touring anymore, aren't around anymore, where it is just the music that's left in a lot of ways, it leaves a message. It leaves something that at least I can pick up, even though I didn't live in the moment. I can pick it up and I can identify with the message that transcends generations. That's how I look at it. And then when there are those few bands and artists that come along and try to carry it on, that's what I really value. So for me, it's a combination of remembering the messages from previous generations, moving forward with them, and then also trying to build on top of them.
Yeah.
It's a 3-part process. That's so I would say. But where the part that's the music is there, the messages are there. It's the second two. It's the two later parts that is where things are struggling. Is one, are people listening, and two, are they picking it up and actually doing something with it? Where that's the greater open question. But for me personally, I can say that my life wouldn't be the same without music. I was listening to not hard rock or anything. I was listening to Let It Be for the first time in a while by the Beatles. Wednesday. Yeah, not yesterday, Wednesday. Great song. One of the best songs ever. But there's just, I don't know, a level of connection to music like that. It's that song. I mean, it's a positive song and everything. It's just saying, literally, just let it be. It's with a good message. But there are times where that song does make me tear up a little bit.
Oh yeah,
just because I can feel there's an emotional connection that I have with that song that I don't get anywhere else. And it's like we've talked about where I don't tear up at movies or anything like that. But there are those songs that do make me feel that way.
Yeah, I mean, everybody can identify with Let It Be because it's just like Simon and Garfunkel, Bridge Over Troubled Water. That song, and Let It Be, where it says, when I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Man, somebody's there for you. And just like a Bridge Over Troubled Water, Bridge Over Troubled Water is one of the great songs ever written too. And there's no rock song more compelling. I don't know exactly what the word would be than Bridge Over Troubled Water when it comes to the feeling like somebody's there for you in the darkest times. And Bridge Over Troubled Water is like, wow, that is a power. It's tough for me to listen to that song.
Yeah.
I don't listen to it very often. It's definitely a different vibe than you get it from Let It Be. But
yes.
yeah, if somebody asked me what is the greatest song about friendship or love or whatever it was, it's Bridge Over Troubled Water, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But anybody should be able to identify with either those songs. There's other songs, but yeah. And that's how music should be. It should be something that touches you, man. In fact, who was I listening to? Oh, I was just listening to an interview with Cheap Trick. And they were talking to, I believe the lead singer is Rob Zander, is
yes.
the lead singer. And they asked him, we go, what's, how do you get to be a great singer or whatever? And he said in the interview, he goes, wow, that's a tough question. He goes, and I believe paraphrasing that he said something to the effect is you got to get people to feel the music, to believe in what you're singing about. That's the mark of a great singer when you have that ability.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Paul McCartney and I think it was Art Garfunkel sang Bridge Over Troubled Water. Those songs are so evidently clear when it comes to what Rob Zander, what he was saying there.
Yes.
So
yeah,
it really doesn't matter really what genre of music you're talking about. But I guess you could get the same vibe from, obviously the blues is a big effect on rock and roll, and that's what the blues is all about, right? And whether it's country, the only type of music I'll say you don't get that from is electro.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
pretty safe to say.
Yeah. So, I mean, like other artists, I mean, I didn't like him or anything like that. People like on the countryside, like Johnny Cash, he was notable for that. What he was kind of like the Bruce Springsteen of country music was Johnny Cash. In fact, if I remember my history right with him, he spent time in prison and so he sang a lot about blue collar stuff, whatever. A lot of people your generation probably don't even know Johnny Cash. I don't know.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and people back in the U.S., they know Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're into that style of music, but the sentiment is still the same, man. I mean, it's what reaches you, man. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big problem with this generation. If I'm going to say, okay, what's the problem? That's the thing, is the ability to be inspired. And see, that's the thing. Rock and roll would inspire people back then. And no matter what genre of music you were in, like we were talking about Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, how they said that they were inspired by the blues so much. A lot of rock and rollers were.
Yeah, it's twofold, because I would say that there's a lot of people in my generation that lack inspiration, but then, like I said, and I can say this comfortably, is that there isn't much out there to really inspire us.
Yeah.
It works both ways. There's most of the stuff that's out there in the world that's being released now, because it's like you're talking about growing up and all of these things were coming out. It was what was happening now. It was the moments, it was the era, it was the culture. Or now, whatever exactly, I'm detached from the US a bit now, but as things come out now, it's just shallow. It's not anything inspiring. And then because people they grow up in a larger ecosystem, and they kind of just get used to it, and they just, yeah, it influences their mindset. That's why, like, when we talk about, like, we're talking about music now, and even the films that I really like, it's like I always talk about one of my favorite films is Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet. And I always talk about because of all the details, the it's intricate. It has a level of production that isn't really seen anymore in a lot of ways. It feels substantial, significant, and like some effort went into it, and I can connect with that. But I learned to value that as time went on because of the immediate personal space that I was growing up in. But at some point, it would be immensely helpful if there was a push to put stuff out in the world that is more inspirational.
Yeah, just thinking about what you're saying there, I think there is bands that are trying to put out music that is meant to inspire, and a band that I just thought of again, current band or recently, anyways, Nightwish. Their music is kind of meant to inspire and so on. Like we watched the film Imaginarium. If anybody gets a chance to see that movie, see that movie. But yeah, it's not like, and we were talking about Ghosts, how they did a few songs meant to inspire as well. Yeah, but do they really reach people? That's the thing, man. Like music did for me and for my generation. I guess that's really the big question.
I would answer that simply to say that the few bands that do exist that are trying to put something out that's more positive, they exist within a bigger moment that doesn't match what they're trying to do. So it's like if you weren't listening to Kiss in 1978 or something, you had a few other bands, really big bands that also offered something else. But now, as the music industry has gotten more global, people have access to music from around the world, and there's this bigger global pool of stuff, of music that doesn't match that. If somebody can name even 10 modern artists that do match that, they exist within a much larger troubling moment. And so it's always a simple way to say it is it's a matter of breaking through.
Yeah,
and it's really, really tough to do that now.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about, because currently hip hop, I guess, is what they call hip hop, is still big, but it's interesting a contrast between what rap was compared to what hip hop is. Because I mean, I'm a big fan of Ice-T and Public Enemy. Some of the music that they put out, but you turn on what hip hop is. That was the thing about rap. Rap was very much in that they would send out a message and it would inspire. Another band was Naughty by Nature. They did a lot with messaging. In fact, one of my favorite songs, "Everything's Gonna Be All Right" by Naughty by Nature. That was a powerful song. And but hip hop is nothing like that. When I hear some of these songs, it's a lot of, it's just cussing, just showing smoking weed, about money. I go, is this really what rap was the precursor to what hip hop has become? But the way what is it's involved into, I don't know if you ask, it'd be an interesting conversation to have with a rapper like Ice-T, compared if he was talking about hip hop today. He's still performing with his band, I guess Body Count, I guess. So yeah. He's still doing things, but not that I agree with everything that Ice-T did, but
Yeah.
What hip hop has turned into is certainly nothing I would be inspired by. I mean, if I grew up in this generation, for sure. But I was when rap was big, I was inspired by a lot by the rap music with Cool Mo D. A lot of his songs because he was on the more positive side. So yeah, and going to your point, there is very little. And when you consider where hip hop is today, it's nothing to be inspired by. I would say
No, it's there's only one. There's a simple sentence that I can describe what modern hip hop and rap is designed to do, and it always reminds me of people that use the term sarcastically, but in this sense, I do mean it literally. Is that hip hop and rap is designed for the guys that listen to it to feel like a big man.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's just an ego thing. There's nothing more to it. Yeah.
Yeah, because
it makes guys feel big when it's like, oh yeah, I have a ton of money or something.
Yeah, because Ice-T, he would sing about staying in school, getting an education, disregard all the other junk that guy would sing about, but still,
yeah.
Ice-T, I've always said, he's a street smart individual. He's like the other guy I respect in that Rollins. We've listened to him. I mean, he's got his head on his shoulders. I don't know what kind of education he's got or anything like that. It's even listening like Alice Cooper right now. I mean, the way he talks and stuff. But I think the biggest issue confronted, family's always been a big issue in this country, trying to keep the family together. But the ability to inspire the younger generation is, and here's a generation we haven't talked about is the baby boomers. And this is the one thing to give the baby boomers credit about is the fact that in the 60s, those guys protested. They were out there. They were inspired by the music of the 60s, and they took that to the streets. They were protesting things. They wanted change. And no generation, not Generation X, no generation after that was ever like the baby boomer generation.
No. Very true.
Yeah, we've really fallen off because Generation X seems like currently today like a generation that doesn't care for the most part. Fortunately, I didn't fall into that trap, but it's sad in some ways to say that you're from Generation X, considering the way the social political environment is today, because a lot of it is Generation X.
Yeah, it's every generation I feel is going through it, except for the youngest, obviously. Every generation I feel like is going through some bit of evolution right now. Or even with my generation, there's splitting. There's splitting. The biggest divide between men and women. But then even with men my age, I mean, I very much feel on the opposite side. I don't connect. I don't see the world in the same way as a lot of men my age. So there's a splintering of my generation. Yeah, Generation X. I mean, it's difficult for me to really say because I'm not that old, so I don't. Yeah, as a kid, you're not really paying attention to what our parents and adults really behaving that differently from 10 years ago because you literally don't have that scale of time available to you. But now, there's a lot of things going on with every generation.
Yeah. So, yeah, like I said, it's. I wish I could reach a lot of people from my generation, man. But I grew up in that generation, and like I said, I mean, for every, like I said, I'm no saint, so I ain't gonna say that I'm way better or anything. But I took a different course than most of the people from my generation. I would think, and I'm not saying that everybody is that way, but it's the percentage is small compared to people I think with my attitude compared to most people from my generation.
Yeah, I mean, from what I can ascertain, I've been around a lot of adults your age since I worked at young age and being around the world a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I've never looked up to an adult your age outside of you. I mean,
yeah. So hopefully, who knows down the road, man? Maybe somebody might be listening to this. Maybe Tobias Forge, he'll be listening to this because all right, yeah, we gotta. He's already done that. I mean, like I said, bands like Nightwish, but I don't know. I don't know what the future holds, man, with music and its impact on the family, on the politics and so forth. But music is just a powerful tool that just like a movie or whatever that can help steer the course of our evolution, man. And unfortunately, like we're just saying, most modern music isn't geared towards guidance. It's just geared towards, like you said, I guess the way you would say it is, yeah. What's the Greek god? Or not vanity?
Overindulgence.
No. What's this? What's the Greek story? They looked in, they saw the reflection, and they couldn't look away. What was that?
Oh no!
Gosh darn it!
Which one was it?
It's not It's not vanity. I mean, the term applies.
Yeah.
Narcissus, right?
Yeah.
Narcissism.
Yeah.
Did I use the right term?
Yeah. Narcissistic.
Yeah.
It was, yeah. I always forget his name was literally just Narcissus. Yeah. That's where the term comes from.
Yeah, but that's what it seems all about, man. Narcissism. Yeah, and we got to break free from that, man. That's one thing about the 60s, 70s, and a little bit of the grunge area where it got to be what was natural. And it wasn't focused on how life is; it's like how should be. So, anyways, we were gonna look at what happened today in rock history.
Yeah. Well, we had a broader discussion about rock.
Yeah.
That was equally interesting for me.
Yeah. So rock music. For my Generation X, what it meant. So if somebody's listening to somebody 60, see, like you said, I'm a senior Generation X. So you'd have somebody maybe 55, 50 or whatever. You see them walk around and they're blasting Led Zeppelin or the Rolling Stones or somebody like that. And you're going, all right, maybe a little bit more about why it is. You listen to it loud. And what the words mean a little bit more to people.
Yeah.
And
from my generation, it's a matter of it is it's a path to find something more meaningful in a world that seems to value connection less and less in a lot of ways, or it's tougher to find. And so the music is there. It is available, and it's maintained its popularity for as long as it has for a reason. That's what I would.
Yeah, I think some people, if you turn on the song Ichigu Park by
okay. Yeah,
but there's a reason why with that song it just popped in my head. Quiet Riot did it. What was the band that originally? It was the new faces. They weren't called just the faces.
No, there's the small faces.
The small faces. Right.
Yeah.
It's too bad those guys didn't last longer. But
No.
Ichigo Park is it reminds me of when I was young, because we didn't have a lot of electronics, cell phones. So where would we go meet for interaction, for friends and so forth? You go to the park.
The park. Yeah.
And what's some of the words from Ichigo Park?
I always forget the actual verses. The song. Yeah. Over bridge of sighs to rest my eyes in shades of green. Under dream inspires to Ichigo Park. That's where I've been.
Yeah, go on.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's where's the bridge? Yeah, I feel inclined to blow my mind, get hung up, feed the ducks with a bun. They all come out to groove about, be nice and have fun in the sun.
Go on.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'd like to go there now with you. You can miss out school while I go to learn the words of fools. Well,
yeah, well, that's rock and roll. But anyways, go on.
Yeah, I mean, then it repeats the next bridge.
Yeah.
And then it finishes with it just all going, it's all too beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ichigo Park, man. Put down the phones. Yeah, take a break from school or wherever. Go down and feed the ducks. Just enjoy nature. And yeah, that's where you're going to be inspired by life, man. I love that song because it's got that vibe.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I completely agree. It always it reminds me a bit in the movie Speed Racer when Speed he goes off to the off track race. He sneaks away, and his younger brother Spritle is there with the monkey. They're trying to watch the race on or they're trying to hide it from his dad, and his dad walks across the house to go outside, and he goes, "Go outside. You're getting pale."
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, just
So,
take a break from
that's good music.
Yeah. Take a break from the electronics and so forth and go down to the park. Which where you are, you have that opportunity where you can go get away, just take in nature a little bit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's rock. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's rock and roll, man.
All the way.
the bitter and the bitter and the sweet of rock and roll, or whatever, man. But yeah. So there you go, man.
That help everybody.